So can you please join me in a slow clap?
Oh my God.
All right, everybody. Coming in at a solid 6. What? Please give up for your headliner tonight. He's going to be performing. Keep it going for Izzy, who doesn't know my height, everybody. Nice to meet you all again. I'm not good at first impressions. The first time I met my parents, I cried. I'm not, you know. I grew up with 4 siblings, so you think I'd be good at interacting with strangers, but I mess it up all the time. Back before COVID, I was taking the trash out in my apartment complex when this frantic lady came up to me. And she was like, "Oh, thank God you're here." And I was like, "I'm not ready for whatever it is you're about to ask of me." She's like, "My Uber to the airport's waiting downstairs and my nanny is running late. Do you mind watching my newborn baby for like 5 minutes until the nanny comes?" And I should have said, "Yeah, no problem." But instead I said, "Well, are you sure you can trust me?" She's like, "Well, not anymore." I'm like, "I'm sorry, it's just that we're total strangers, okay? You don't know me, but I know me. And knowing my luck, that kid is gonna die in the 5 minutes that I watch it." But anyway, I apologized, and I said I watched the kid. So she left, and I watched the kid, and it died. So everything worked out. I said before, I come from a very Catholic family. I didn't really feel like I fit that mold, though. I'm not Catholic anymore. I missed some parts, though, like there was always one part of Mass growing up where the priest did a 10-minute chant soliloquy, and it was always fun trying to see when he was going to end it. He's like, "We're praying like this, and we're going to keep praying like this. He's been praying like this for 10 minutes. Is he done praying? Is he almost done? Will he end it now? No, he's going to keep praying." I was scared of Catholicism growing up. I really was, because it was just so serious. Like that part of the Mass that I just talked about, that's where they just like talk about like how powerful and how much God is. The priest is literally going like, "Through with him and in him, through with him, through him and with him and in him, in the unity of the Holy Spirit, all glory and honor is yours, Almighty Father." Just in case you wanted to know how much God was in God, you know, he's coming at you from every angle. Through God and with God and in God. And don't forget, also God is also a ghost God. And also God is your Father forever and ever. And everyone's like, "Amen." I'm like, "What the fuck? God. Yeah. 29. Life's getting monotonous now. You know, I had a dream a couple weeks ago where the entirety of my dream I was just filling out a form. That was my whole dream. Just filling out a form. When I was little, I had nightmares, and they were like monsters and dragons attacking me and like blowing up everybody I know and love. Now my nightmare's like, "Oh no, my car insurance premium." The saddest part is, I woke up in the middle of the dream, and like a kid who's having a good dream, I went back and was like, "No, I need to finish that." Because if I don't, I'm bundling this year, so I'm not deductible. Yeah, man. Everybody I know is married or like buying a house or is looking at homes, and I'm here with you guys. I got 2 roommates. Roommates suck. They do. Not the people, the premise of a roommate. Okay, because you don't want a roommate, you need a roommate, and having one just reminds you of that. Like when I see my roommates, I'm cheerful, you know, every morning, but inside I'm just reminded, I'm 29, I'm poor, and I'm sharing towels, you know. They don't know that. Having a roommate's like the end of a bad marriage. You're sleeping in separate bedrooms, you're only staying together for the lease, and you know at least one of you is having sex with somebody else. You know. And it's not until you get a roommate that you realize you care about meaningless things. Like, turns out I'm obsessed with how we load the dishwasher. I didn't know that till I saw my roommate doing it the wrong way. I freaked out. I was like, we're not just throwing cups and bowls in here nilly-willy, Mike, okay? This is a machine specifically designed with compartments to wash all of our dishes as efficiently as possible. Not to be treated like a pile of leaves, okay? This isn't a hamper for your dishes, Mike. Anyway, I need to go take a shower. Can I borrow a towel? Yeah, man. I was raised to be a Republican, so I'm also a military veteran. That's how I was raised to be. But I don't really feel like I fit that mold either, but I got this neat hat. You know? It's a nice little hat. I like it because you get the same you get the same style of hat for all veterans regardless of which war you fought in. You know, so I can like walk by a World War II veteran who stormed the beaches in Normandy and be like, oh, World War II, huh? You should see my carpal tunnel. Fun fact, this hat also is it's in a classic style, traditional military style of train conductor. That's what we all look like with this hat on. Yeah. I don't know, I'm self-conscious about my military service. It's a weird time to be a veteran because of the political divide in America. You know? Like if I go to a conservative town and I say I'm a veteran, they're like, woo yeah! If I go to a liberal town, they're like, no, let's see if you're racist first. Like if I go to New Hampshire, they're like, how many guns you have? If I go to New York City, they're like, did you storm the Capitol? I always say, you have the rest of the set to find out, I guess. That was scary to see, huh? It was awkward for me. Do you know how awkward it is to be watching a disaster unfold live on television and just being like, oh, there's Tim. Didn't think he had it in him. Yeah, I'm self-conscious. I don't know, I don't really feel like I serve because I have two brothers, both Marines, both deployed, both got injured, and I got arrested. So, you know, you're welcome for that, I guess.
What were you doing?
That's for a question later.
Should have written it on the paper.
Should have written it on the paper. I'll tell it at the end of my set. I don't have it in here, but I'll talk about it. My brother, I'll tell you about my brother's injury. My brother, well, I'm not going to use his real name for privacy, so let's just say Jeffrey Townsend Turner. My brother Jeff was shot in the helmet. An Afghan soldier kind of saved his life. Jeff was climbing up a berm, and the Afghan was pulling him up when shots were fired, so the Afghan dropped him, and he slid back down. And as he was sliding back down, his helmet slid forward, and right as his helmet slid forward, the bullet struck right where his helmet slid to. Now, he just got like a welt on his forehead, so he was fine. But that's not what my mom told me. My mom grew up very poor, very German. She doesn't have time for emotion. She's task-oriented. I was in high school at the time, and so I just came home from school one day, and right as I walked into the kitchen, my mom just goes, Jeff got shot in the head. But he's okay. Oh, and your father's gay. My father's not gay, he's a pilot. Those aren't related. My other brother, James Kehoe Turner Jr. James got injured leading his Marines through night vision training in an abandoned warehouse. If you don't know what that is, just imagine Zero Dark 30 meets The Office. Take a second to So it's pitch black, we got night vision goggles on to go through all the rooms saying clear. And at the end of this hallway, his whole team knew that there was this open doorway to an empty elevator shaft. So when they came up to it, they was like, clear, and they turned around. But James forgot. And thinking they were just being lazy, he was like, hey, that's some bullshit, clear. You gotta go in like this. And he walked straight out in the elevator shaft.
Oh my God.
Falls 3 stories down. Clear. He says he only had one thought on the way down, which was, well, there's nothing I can do about it now. And the doctors say that thought saved him, because most people, when they fall, tense up their legs, land on them straight, and shatter them. But James's thought calmed him. So instead of shattering his legs, he landed on his ass and broke that instead. Win-win. The medic was on the second floor next to the elevator shaft, and he says he just heard the whoop, and that he immediately knew it was James. Which is my favorite part. So they evac him out to Germany, and then they send him home because he's got a broken pelvis. Back home, the doctor's like, you're gonna have a full recovery, but right now your pelvic area is so swollen, it's constricting your digestive tract. You can't poop. So we're gonna give you these pills to help things along. So he goes home, he takes the pills for 2 weeks. No poop. My mom is literally scooping it out of him, which I know is gross, but as his brother, that's the best thing that's ever happened to me. And she doesn't care. She's like, let's go. Megan's hockey ends at 4. Come on. But he's like, what are we going to do? And my mom's like, just keep taking the pills. And this is what I think is the difference between knowledge and wisdom, because that's what my mom said. But my dad, an experienced man, was like, you know what you need, James? You need McDonald's. So he takes him to McDonald's, gets him a double quarter pounder with cheese through the drive-thru, gives it to my brother, and he shits himself on the way home. Yeah. How do I compete with those stories? I was an engineer in the Air Force. I'm like the Coke Zero of war. I'm like War Zero. 0 fighting ability, same great benefits. Like the Impossible Burger for war. I'm beyond war. Hey, do you like the taste of war but don't want to feel guilty or traumatized about it? Try the Air Force. No offense to the Air Force, but I think we can all agree that they're like the New Balance of the military. Yeah. I was an engineer. I worked with civilians in an office 9 to 5. The most warlike thing I ever did was try to plan lunch with only the people I like. You should have seen the missions I went on, hunkered down at Chair Force 1. Clock strikes 11:30. I'm like, shh, Bravo team, this is hungry Hippo. Come in, Bravo. Hippo, this is Bravo. Operation Shake Shack is a go. Area secure, no sign of Jason from HR. Roger that, Bravo team, moving out. Oh, hey, Kevin, you guys going on lunch? Mayday, mayday, we've been spotted. You can always tell a coworker you're going to hate from day one. You can always tell. I knew I was going to hate Jason because the first email he sent me, he used a semicolon, that arrogant piece of shit. A semicolon. If a semicolon could laugh, it would be, If it could talk, it would say, don't you know? A semicolon sends its linguine back to the kitchen because it wasn't al dente. A semicolon. You don't use a semicolon by accident. If you're using a semicolon, it's because you read up on it and you're like, I could keep these two ideas as separate sentences, but I just feel like this is a much faster way of saying I'm better than you. That's what it's like. Yeah, man. The closest I got to war was texting my brothers when they were at war. When they deployed, we texted. That's insane to think about. Like, throughout history, if you had a loved one at war, the best you could do was write them a letter and hope that they got it. And then hope that they would write one back and it would get back to you. But when my brothers were deployed, we just texted. And texting has a totally different culture. I just be like, hey James, how's war? Are you making friends? He's like, pretty good. I was like, what does that even mean in this situation? He's like, what are you doing? And I was like, homework. He's like, oh, that sucks. I was like, I feel like what you're doing sucks. He's like, oh shit, BRB. And I was like, will you BRB? Will you? And now in Ukraine, this is like the first war with like TikTok. You have soldiers posting to TikTok. They're like, how's the war? Like, pretty good. My motors don't jiggle wiggle. They explode. Oh no, Wiggler, you've been shot. In a minute, I'm gonna pump me up. Everybody in my family's cool, man. My dad's a pilot. Pilots are cool. And that's what makes it weird, because I just have a hard time sexualizing my father. But I'll try. Oh, I must have set up on that. No wonder you guys were like, what? Forgot to say, women consistently rank pilot as one of the sexiest professions for men. Yeah. And I just have a hard time sexualizing my father. But I'll try. I'll give it a shot. I get it. I get why pilots have this sexy reputation, because the things they say just sound like they're hitting on you. Like last time I flew with him, I met him at the gate 90 minutes early, and he was like, Kev, you want to just get on the plane now? And I was like, should I like wait for my zone? And he's like, Kev, I fly the thing. You board when I say you board. And I was like, oh my God, Dad! Stop! He's like, what are you doing? I was like, what are you doing? Damn, man. Being a pilot, so means I got to fly for free, so you're all entitled to hate me. It's not that simple. We flew standby. If you don't know what that is, that's where they let anyone who bought a ticket get on the plane, and if there's any empty seats left over, they go down this ranked list to see who gets on. So, growing up in a family of 7, when Dad was like, we're going to Disney World! That meant you pack your bags, you get to the airport, you check in, you go through security, you get to the gate, and you look up at the list of all the people in front of you, and you just hope somebody dies. Like you wish things on people. And we would get separated a lot. Like if there was 2 seats available and 5 of us, 2 of us would get on, and the rest of us would find another way home. And when you get separated from your family a lot, you get really good at evaluating which family members are important to you. Like now, if my family was ever held hostage and they're like, give us $1 million or we'll kill your sister, I'd be like, which sister? Which one? I told both of my sisters that joke, and one of them was like, wait, which one is it? And the other one was like, if you have to ask. Yeah, man. I love my dad. He's cool. He over-explains things, though. You know, sometimes it's great. Like when I was little, I was like, Dad, how do planes fly? And he was like, well, you know how the wing of an airplane is flat on the bottom and curved on the top? Yeah, well, air flows differently under the wing than it does over the wing. And that difference creates pressure. And I was like, wow, what's pressure? And he's like, well, you know how when you jump in a pool, you can feel the weight of all the water around you? Yeah, that's pressure. And that pressure pushes the wings up. And that's how planes fly. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. But I didn't need that much detail for other things. When I was like, Dad, what's divorce? Well, you know how you try to go to sleep late at night, but you can't fall asleep because you hear Mommy and Daddy screaming at each other downstairs? Yeah, well, that creates tension. What's tension? Well, you know how you run downstairs to see what's going on, and when you get in the room, everything gets real quiet, and you feel this heavy weight in your heart like it's your fault? Yeah, that's tension. And you know how you catch Daddy in the garage by himself drinking a bottle of scotch? Yeah, that's depression. And tension mixed with depression make Mommy and Daddy go get lawyers to compete for your love. Oh, is that why I have 2 bikes? Yeah, that's divorce. All right, too sad? Okay. I like my dad, I do. He makes me angry because he's so baffled by technology. And I know like every millennial hates their boomer parents for being bad at technology, but like I take it personally because my dad successfully flies over 300 people across the Atlantic Ocean safely on a daily basis, but he calls the windows on his computer magic boxes. You know? That really bothers me. He's so baffled. Anytime I try and help him, he's like, okay, I don't even know where to begin. How do I even do this? It's just mayhem over here. I can't even move my mouse. It pisses me off because I'm like, am I going to be like that? Am I going to be that baffled by the technology of the future? My kids are going to be like, Dad, where's the space vacuum? And I'm like, space is a vacuum. They're like, no, I know we know space is a vacuum. Where's the space vacuum? The one we bought you for Bezos Day. Back in my day, we called it Christmas. I know, Dad, but Bezos bought Christmas. Okay? We can't call it Christmas anymore. Where's my wife? When are you talking about my wife? Dad, she's not your wife anymore. It's 2076. Everybody's gay now. So I have anxiety, too.
Yeah.
That That's like not like a yay anxiety, that's like a I have it too. Yeah, well, I was originally diagnosed with anxiety, and then they found out it was something else. So, you know, great. But originally, the behavioral therapist was like, okay, here's what she gave me all these weird like affirmations to do. I had to talk myself up to myself. I was starting to feel like my own hype man. Every morning I stood in front of the mirror like, yo, 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 yo! We're gonna bring out the most lovable and capable guy in this one bathroom apartment! He's 5'10", not 6'1". He's a little lanky, but he's been in the gym for 3 months straight, so he's feeling proud about that! When I say it gets, you say better. It gets better. It gets better. Does it really?
No.
So that didn't work. So then she was like, okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to put your hand on your belly, and I want you to breathe in. When you breathe in once, you breathe in so your stomach gets bigger. And when you breathe out, I want you to go calm. Calm. How does that make you feel? Ridiculous. She's like, well, I want you to do that whenever you're feeling anxious. If you're out, you know, if you're home and you feel anxious, do it in your home. If you're in public, do it in public. I'm like, there's no fucking way I'm doing that in public. Can you imagine being in line at the bank and the guy behind you just starts going, calm. Calm. This is now a robbery situation. That's what it is. Okay, I'm going to answer a question. I almost forgot to. How will you die? Probably. Face down, ass up. I don't know why I thought of that. What is the furthest you have traveled from home? I live in California. Which is closer, California or like Europe?
California's closer.
Thank you. So to Europe. There you go. Okay. Back to the anxiety. So yeah, after that, hey, whatever. After that, the anxiety therapy wasn't working specifically, just anxiety, and then I ended up getting a different analysis, and they found out they diagnosed me with obsessive compulsive disorder. Does anyone know what that is? Raise your hand if you know what OCD is. Raise your hand, your other hand, because I need the symmetry. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think OCD is like, oh my god, I'm such a weird mom. Like, I gotta be so clean and organized. Like, when I go grocery shopping, I take the bags of the cereal out of the box and I put it in its own container that I have labeled myself and make it all look all the same and organize it in a cabinet. Oh my god, I'm such a weird, like, my OCD is so weird. If you can do this voice, it's not a disorder. Oh my god, I'm such a weird mom, you know, like, I mean, you have an obsession just with HGTV. That's not what OCD is. I think to understand OCD, you need to know two things. You need to know, like, it's a doubting disorder, so it's all about doubt. It's about intrusive thoughts. Do you know what intrusive thoughts are? Anyone know what that is? Yeah.
Yes.
I think of it like a bad reflex, you know? Like if you went to the doctor and he tapped your knee, like the worst possible thing happened, you know? Like it's just you can't control your thoughts, so they just happen. You know, it'd be like if you sat down and he's like, all right, let's test your reflexes, then you tap it instead of your knee going, he was like, boom, you're like, see, Kyle! Oh my god, I have no idea. Where did that come from? I am so sorry. I did not know that would happen. How do I even control that? So yeah, that's what it's like. Intrusive thoughts, and then, you know, you've got weird topics. Like sometimes your intrusive thoughts are really fun and benign. Like, here's one I had. You know, have you ever been driving down the street and like you see a wild turkey and you just start going, does anybody else do that? Is that just me? I feel like that's racist to turkeys. I feel like turkeys are offended by that. I feel like that turkey goes home, he's like, Mom, did you ever guess what happened to me today? She's like, what happened, dear? Well, I was walking home from work and this man with his head out the window, he called me a gobbler. A gobbler with a hard arm? Sometimes they're like that. Sometimes they're benign, but they're really dark. Like my dad, he's retiring this year, right? And so he sent an email to all my siblings, and he's like, so I'm retiring this year. My last flight is in October, and so your mother and I bought you all tickets so you could be on my last flight with me before I retire. And I was like, oh my god, that's so sweet, Dad, I can't believe, thank you so much. And I was like, well, it could be all of our last flight. You know? But Dad, you're getting up there in age. The government's literally saying you can't fly anybody anymore, and your first thought is, I'm gonna bring the whole family on. Then my brain was like, what if you was doing it on purpose? He was like, my kids turn out too liberal, trying to burn the whole family tree. You know? I'm just grateful he flies for Delta. You know, Delta crew. Imagine if you flew for Spirit. Every flight feels like your last flight on Spirit. You know? Like you're trying to sit down and get in your seat, and the person next to you is draping wet socks on the seat in front of you. The guy to your left is ironing a burger, you know? He wouldn't even be able to get through the announcement. He'd be like, shh, ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Thank you so much. I've been flying for 30 years now. I just want to say, please ignore that, ladies and gentlemen. That's not a dog. That's our flight attendant, Bernard. Bernard, you gotta stop doing that, man. Why are you doing that? All right. Yeah. That's what those are like intrusive thoughts. But for OCD, really the intrusive thoughts are about like things that you know not to be true about yourself, and they attack like your identity. The earliest form of OCD that I have, looking back now, is I would ask my parents if I was adopted. I had intrusive thoughts that I was adopted when I was little, because the worst thing that I could be was adopted. And I'd ask my mom, I'd be like, am I adopted? And she's like, no, you're not adopted, Kevin. I'd be like, but I'm adopted, right? She's like, no, you're not adopted. I'm like, okay, but like, can you just tell me? If I am adopted, I'd rather you just tell me. She's like, no, Kevin, you're not adopted. You're just annoying. You know? And then I, went to high school and college and started dating. And, then like, I was raised really Catholic, right? So the worst thing I could be in the eyes of my parents was gay. So my brain started telling me I was gay. I had intrusive thoughts about that all the time. And when I sought treatment earlier this year, the therapist was like, when does this really flare up? And I was like, usually when I'm having sex with dudes. You're gay. Yeah. Then I became an adult, and it evolved. That's called orientation OCD, and then there's another one called harm OCD. So like a lot of moms with OCD, they have harm OCD. They have intrusive thoughts that they're gonna harm their children. And it's to the point where they like can't even be in the same room with them because they're so afraid. They would never do it, but their brain keeps telling them they're going to do it because it's exactly what they never want to do. And none of them are like, oh my god, I gotta leave the house because I'm afraid I'm going to kill my children. I'm such a weird mom. I'm such a quirky mom. So quirky the way I hide my knives everywhere. I can't be around sharp objects. I'm like, all right. Yeah, so like when I say I'm murdering up here, that's literally happening in my brain. I'm murdering all of this. Yeah. How do you even talk about that? How do you even like tell your parents growing up? Like, oh mom, can I like talk to you for a second about what's going on in my brain? She's like, Kev, I'm not ready for whatever it is you're about to talk to me. And I was like, I'm not gonna, but I keep having these thoughts that like I'm gonna hurt people. She's like, oh, I thought you were gonna tell me you were gay. Oh, thank God. All right, that's it for me. Thank you so much.